It felt like I was always putting pressure on myself to get things done, not to be more efficient, but so that I could do more after. I grew tired of chasing goal after goal and not actually giving myself that time to celebrate each achievement and instead setting my sights on new things. I was trying to be productive all of the time, but my perception of productivity was so distorted, and I thought that it meant that I had to be busy all of the time. I was surrounded by content about hustle culture, grinding in your 20s and being the ultimate girl boss. I felt pressured to network, to do as many courses as possible, to build side hustles and to keep up the Jonases. In the end, I just got sick of feeling like I was pressing the fast forward button on my own life and getting more excited about something in the future than what was already here in the present. When I realised that I was jumping through hoop after hoop, I began to wonder, when does it actually end? When can I finally have a life I actually enjoy? And as I jumped through all of these hoops, am I even jumping towards a life that I even want? Those realisations have really forced me to reflect on what I want for my own life, rather than let society influence my choices. And somewhere along that line, I came across the term slow living. Slow living is a lifestyle that encourages a slower approach to aspects of everyday life. It started off with a slow food movement in the 1980s, and that was a response to fast food. But slow living has really evolved over time, and there's now so many terms under this big umbrella of slow living, such as slow fashion, slow travel, and even slow reading. But at the heart of this whole slow living movement is really just the message to take the time to enjoy the things in your life and to be more intentional and more conscious with the things that you do. Slow down and enjoy life. It's not only the scenery you miss by going too fast, you also miss the sense of where you are going and why. Like with most lifestyle, there's a danger to think that you have to transform your whole life. Like with the term minimalism, I always thought that I could never embrace that lifestyle because I could never get rid of everything that I own. And likewise, when I first heard about slow living, I thought, well, that could never be me because I want to be productive. I want to have forms of technology in my life. I want to be able to go out to eat every now and again and not have to cook all of the time. And I want to be able to buy clothes because I don't really feel like making my own clothes. But once I realized that slow living is not a set of rigid rules or an aesthetic, I realized that slow living can be so powerful for anyone, even someone who is juggling so many things, because it encourages patience, it encourages doing things with intention, and it encourages not missing out on your own life, which is something that I really want for myself. So how can we adopt a slow living lifestyle in a fast-paced world? I want to share some of the ways that I've incorporated this concept of slow living in my own life. Stop seeing time as being wasted. There was a time where I felt like I had to listen to a podcast whilst doing the dishes, or that I had to read a book whilst on the train, or that I had to listen to an audiobook whilst in the shower. Now I really appreciate these mindless activities. I actually love giving my brain a break during these moments, and I no longer feel pressured to constantly multitask and squeeze things in at every opportunity. If I'm doing nothing, sometimes I just want myself to do nothing. I watch reruns of Friends all of the time, and I used to think that was me wasting my time because I've already watched all of these episodes and TV is bad for you, as they say. But honestly, watching Friends gives me so much comfort and so much joy.
Thanks, man. I gotta go check something.
So how is that time wasted? Just because you're not working towards something at a certain time, it doesn't mean it's wasted time. I've learned that it's actually okay not to fill everything with something. It's okay to pause. It's okay to just live in the moment as it is, rather than trying to make it productive somehow. Filling my day with joy. This may seem obvious, but I think the main mistake that I've made in the past is that my day-to-day life revolved around work. Almost all of my day in some way was related to my career because I was so focused on where I wanted to go. And it seems so ridiculous now because these days I make sure that I do something every day that I enjoy. And this is the happiest that I've ever been in my whole life. And the funny thing is, this is probably the period where I've actually accomplished the least. And that's because success, awards, accolades, and money won't necessarily give you as much happiness as those things that actually genuinely make you happy and bring you joy. Or at least certainly in my case, that was true. By doing things every day that bring joy into my life, I feel like I've actually slowed down naturally because I'm enjoying day by day rather than chasing a day in the future where I will give myself permission to be happy. Stop putting time limits on things. I used to say that I want to be married by this age, or that I want to have a house by this age, and so on. And even now, I could very easily say to myself that I want 100,000 subscribers by this certain date. And yes, I know the advice out there is that we should set time-specific goals, or that we should be specific with affirmations where we say that we want to achieve something by a certain date. But for me personally, it's those very time limits that make me feel rushed and make me feel pressured. When I have time limits, I become obsessed with rushing towards it. Whereas when when you take away that time limit, you focus more on that journey and that process. And it's through that you can really ask yourself, am I actually enjoying this? And if you don't, you can stop. Don't plan everything. I love planning and I love organizing, but there's so much freedom in just letting things unfold themselves. I think social media makes us think that we have to book brunch every single weekend, but sometimes it's really nice just to be a bit more spontaneous on the day and see what you actually want to do. So even with traveling, I used to set such rigid itineraries because I wanted to make the most of each trip and I didn't want to miss out on any of the sites. But thank God for my partner, who is so much more laid back than I am. He very quickly made me realize the beauty of not having such rigid plans and just seeing what we want to do there and then. And because of that, it means that we are just able to sit outside of a cafe for hours and just be around the locals. Obviously, plans and bookings are great and sometimes needed, but they should never disturb your ability to enjoy that actual moment too. Enjoy nature. I'm not the most outdoorsy person by a mile. I was born in London, I've always been around big cities, I'm not that active, and I've spent most of my time indoors with technology. But since moving up north, I've really begun to appreciate the beauty of nature and the impact that that has on me. I think being around nature instead of high-rise buildings, whether you live in a city or not, is so important because high-rise buildings are usually associated with work. So that will always give you a vibe for a much faster paced life, whereas nature in itself teaches us patience. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Carve out some time that's just for you. My morning routines may seem productive to some people because I eat healthy and I do yoga, but the essence of my morning routine is actually to be mindful and to savor time and create these little intentional moments for myself, like when I sip on my cup of tea every morning before I get on with the rest of my day. I think even for the busiest of people, being able to just make the time to cultivate a sense of awareness and just observe really simple things can just give you a few moments of peace before the rest of the day. Even if it's when you're on the toilet, because that's the only time you can make, you could just sit there and appreciate Mother Nature as it does its thing. I just think time alone is so important, whether you want to use that time for a hobby or to do exercise, to meditate or to journal, or just to sit in absolute silence. I think it's so much easier to slow down when we're alone because we can really tune into ourselves. Use your devices intentionally. Slow living doesn't mean saying no to technology, but I think we can embrace a slow living approach to our devices by being more intentional with how we actually use them. So for example, this could be downloading apps which actually serve us and are apps that we actually really enjoy, or it could be thinking about which social media accounts you follow or choosing what you actually post for yourself. I used to have no social media accounts whatsoever and very rarely used my phone, but that was until I learned how to use my devices in the right way, and I do actually have a video on that. Slow living is going to mean different things for everyone. For me, it means not rushing, not feeling like I need to achieve things by a certain age, not being part of the rat race, and being more intentional and more mindful, and just trying to live more in the moment than in the future or in my head. I'm honestly so grateful that the slow living movement exists and that there are so many others out there who are trying to resist the system which tells us that we have to work and live as fast as possible to keep up with the rest of the world. It's a relief to me that we can bring about a more intentional world even as technology continues to advance. So stay intentional and go create some magic.